Did you know that I am a self-righteous sin sniffer?
A sin sniffer?
Yeah.
Huh.
Mr. Hawkins, Preston Hawkins, might be the guy that owns the Sonic drive-thru. He had some choice words for me today.
They got good soda pops at Sonic.
Never go, it's fast food.
Yeah. The other new one I heard was sin chaser, like ambulance chaser, but you're a sin chaser. Sin chaser. If you're going after people doing wrong stuff in the church or from the pulpit, you're just a sin chaser.
Yeah. Well, let's get the show on the road.
Okay. Welcome to the Liberty Without Compromise live stream broadcast. We are the only live, local, liberty-minded program right here in Kootenai County. And we're going to continue to do what we've always done. We expose political power players, politicians, and social influencers. They are very active right here in Kootenai County. I'm here to screen your questions and comments. We're your hosts, Dan and Dawna Wilson. Throughout the program, you can put those questions and comments, participate with us right in the comment section on whichever platform you're watching tonight. You're joining us live right now. Be sure to share this feed to your page or profile so more of you can join in on the conversation. A reminder, opinions expressed are ours only, not necessarily that of any of our advertisers, sponsors, and affiliates. Not necessarily that of anybody in the comments section. We let the comments fly. We only censor them if you're flooding the place.
Or if you're just annoying me.
Yeah.
That can happen too.
Dan reserves the right. Tonight, faith, politics, and power. Stefanie Fetzer, exposed. We're going to give you behind the scenes of the Trad Fam Act. It's on tonight's show. We're going to pull back the curtain on one of the most influential and least understood figures shaping Kootenai County's political and religious landscape, Stefanie Fetzer. For weeks, we've been investigating her rise from California activist to local power player, tracking how she embedded herself within North Idaho's most powerful networks, from churches to political committees and emerging nonprofits. We'll begin tonight's live stream with our bit of an introduction and stage for our exclusive investigative report that's premiering publicly for the first time during the broadcast live tonight. After the premiere, we're going to move into a live breakdown and commentary, connecting the dots between Fetzer's influence and the broader alliances reshaping faith and politics in our community. We invite you to join the conversation in real time, share your reactions, ask questions, and contribute to this discussion in the comment section as we go through all these details together. Now, ladies and gentlemen, here's your host, Dan Wilson.
Hey, welcome. Thank you guys for joining us on this Wednesday, the middle part of November. It is getting colder. I like the warm. I'll take the cold, but it is getting cold, and I wish we were in the tropics.
It's good. It's crisp when you go out. When you went out this morning, I was saying goodbye to you. I was like, well, it feels kind of good, but that's because I got the warmth coming. I'm in the doorway, so the warmth is behind me, and the cool crispness is in front of me. So all in, it's a balance.
Well, we have quite the program for you tonight. I would encourage you right now, wherever you are, to get your favorite chair, a good adult beverage, preferably bourbon or scotch. Clear stuff is okay too. Coffee, maybe even a little bit of tobacco, cigar and or pipe, because we are going to talk about Stefanie Fetzer and how she ties in with Candlelight and all the other organizations that we have been exposing for the past year. Dawna has worked very hard on this segment for many weeks, and I think that you are going to be as riveted to it as I was when I saw the rough draft and then the final draft. We here promote things that have to do with liberty. And the liberty comes in many different varieties. 2 Corinthians 3:17, wherever the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. Our founders believed that all men were created equal in value, and all men have the right to life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, property. And the greatest of these, in my opinion, obviously you want to live. That's pretty important. But it's your liberty to be able to go and pursue those things that make you unique. And founders knew that it was the government's obligation to protect your right to liberty. And by the way, liberty includes your personal thoughts. The First Amendment could be arguably the most important of all of the amendments. Now, I'm not going to go there because I don't truly believe there is one amendment that is greater than the other when it comes to the original Bill of Rights. But I will tell you that if you don't have the right to free speech, to freely express yourself, to assemble, to petition your government, and to worship freely, you're not a free individual. And as we look across this fractured country today, what is going on nationally, what is going on globally, but even nationally with the things that seem to continue to go on business as usual as they push their boots down on the throats of the American people. We shine a lot of times the spotlight right here where most of you that are watching are living out your lives right here in this county. And I tell you, as I did on the campaign trail when I ran for sheriff in 2024, right here locally matters more than any other part of government, whether it comes to the state or to the federal government. If you can't protect yourself, if you can't build a bulwark right here locally, a good one, you have no defense. Concentric rings of security, as we used to refer to it as. Now, we say things here that make many people upset. There are people that call themselves conservative, although I don't know that they know themselves what they're conserving. People that call themselves followers of Christ, and yet their actions continually would point to those that follow a prophet, but have not turned their lives over to a savior.
It's objective religiosity or objective Christianity, because the methods will change depending on their desired outcome. Extremely dangerous.
We see those that cannot comprehend why your government is not your faith, although people of faith should be in government. And ultimately, my friends that are followers of Christ, people of faith, fail to grasp. You guys aren't taking this to heart. I think you think it doesn't happen in your religious gathering. Kind of like, all of Congress is horrible except for my personal congressman, like Mike Simpson. Well, he's not ours, but, Idaho, Russ Fulcher, or our senators Risch and Crapo. He hasn't heard that one before.
Yeah, that was the first time.
Look, the reality of it is that you guys fail to understand that the church is the largest problem today in America politics because it's impotent, it's ineffective, and we've shown you just a small snippet of what goes on right here in Kootenai County. And the amount of people that have been defending the actions of the past week are astonishing to me. It's kind of like the Teresa Bourne-Poll thing. Many people have falsely accused me of supporting Teresa Bourne-Poll and her ability to cause a disturbance. They claim that I am protecting a Democrat because I am a Democrat, instead of believing the way that the rule of law is supposed to be, that all people receive equal justice under the law.
Just to clarify that, they claim you're protecting a Democrat because you're a Democrat,
yes.
Meaning they're accusing you
yes.
of being a Democrat. Mm-hmm. That's not you stating that you are a Democrat.
Thank you for that. They will continually push on the fact that I'm a rhino because, that's the same thing as saying you're a racist. Or what's the other one that they've been using lately? There's one that just slipped my tongue.
I'm not. There's so many.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So the reality of it is that I believe in the rule of law for everybody, regardless. Now, this past week, some of you have been very upset in the community. Those that aren't part of the KCRCC cabal and the great Zambino, I don't know, Chairman Reagan, Zamboni, the great Zamboni, the magician. I know.
I'm glad you fixed that because hold that thought, which I know this is going to throw you way off. Our live streaming platform just implemented a new feature where it does both vertical and horizontal feeds. We are still going to have to work out some camera operations or a separate camera for the horizontal feed. So for anybody who feels like they're seeing the center of our broadcast right now or the blue lights in the background.
Now I'm seeing that.
You're going to want to switch to the horizontal feed.
All right.
There's that.
So people are upset because those that believe that Bob Norris, I'm among those, used force that he was not legally under the Constitution authorized to use. I believe that he battered a woman. I believe that he and the Lear management guys kidnapped a woman, and not even to address what they did to Greg Johnson. But we received this past week a letter from Deputy Attorney General Jeff Nye from the Idaho Attorney General under Raul Labrador. And once 6 pages, and in essence, I can summarize it. They found in their investigation for the numerous complaints about Bob Norris's actions at that February 22nd, 2025 town hall event hosted by the KCRCC at the Coeur d'Alene High School, Bob Norris did not act in bad faith nor with malice. Now, you guys don't get too discouraged. I understand that it seems like the lead law enforcement authority in the state, the Attorney General, working on behalf of the governor, is giving Norris a pass. And in some ways, it kind of seems that way. But remember this. There's a reason that as a law enforcement officer, I had probable cause that I believe. Remember, it's what I believe when I made an arrest, given the circumstances, given the evidence at hand, that I believe that a crime was or had been or is about to be committed that gave me the right to lawfully place somebody under arrest and to take them to jail and to lob charges against them. And then after review by the prosecuting attorney and before a judge, it's then decided whether or not there was probable cause in my arrest and whether or not this charge is going to stick and the defendant's going to have to defend themselves in a court of law and a jury of their peers. So just remember that while this attorney general, this deputy attorney general, who seems to be a good dude, did not find, just for battery, that he could prove, remember, he can't prove that Norris had any bad faith or malice, doesn't mean that Bob Norris is not going to be found liable and guilty when it comes to federal charges that undoubtedly are coming his way. There are civil rights violations that are going to be considered by both, my guess would be not only Borenpol, but also Gregory Johnson, maybe others. And it's going to eventually go before a court and a jury gets to decide. So don't be discouraged right now. Don't believe that this is a imminent victory. When I read through Jeff Nye's summary, of course, he seemed to interpret, and again, that's he's a profession, not me. He's a professional. But looking at it, when he gave his narrative, especially about Ed Baharana, look, it doesn't take much for us to jump to a speculation when it comes to Raul Labrador and his ties to the state GOP, to Brent Reagan, Dorothy Moon. But just relax. I usually like the feds to stay in their lane. Said that on the campaign trail. I pissed off Democrats. I pissed off North Idaho Republicans. I pissed off, apparently, Paul Van Noy, because I clearly stated a sheriff has the ability to keep federal government law enforcement in check. That's what you want locally when it comes to the chief law enforcement officer. But, you know, these things are going to play out, and there will be accountability one way or another. We just have to be patient as we watch it.
For weeks, we've been investigating a little understood political power player here in Kootenai County, Stefanie Fetzer. We've got an investigative report that is premiering live tonight, coming up here in just a little bit. We will be getting to soon. We want you to share this feed to your page or profile so that more of you can interact in the comment section, even as we premiere that investigative report. And as Dan and I continue to talk about a couple other things leading into that here tonight.
Yeah. Now, last week, we played a long audio clip. It was about an hour long. It came on the heels of the previous week's episode of another leaked video that we played. And these were surrounding Pastor Paul Van Noy of Candlelight Fellowship right here in Coeur d'Alene. You guys can go back. We're not going to give you all the details as to why we did that, but in kind of a continuation, we released this yesterday. It's a collage of the greatest quotes from Paul Van Noy himself, a person who opposed me, although I had never met him. I attempted to meet him. I put the offering out. He lied for several months and claimed he never received anything from me. Then when my proof was given to those that were challenging Paul, then he admitted that, yeah, I had sent it, but it offended him. He goes on eventually 8 months later to respond to my email and tell me that he was offended by my email. But in the leaked audio, he talks about how I didn't wine and dine him. This is just a very small snippet of what I believe as a pastor of a 2,000 plus or minus congregation should not be, his conduct should not be what we are listening, let alone all the other slanders and lies that were involved in that original leaked audio. But we're going to play this collage and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the blowback by people that were so incensed about Dan Wilson exposing Paul Van Noy.
Very arrogant now. Every politician, everybody running for office always calls my office and makes an appointment to see me. But that's not how you get to me. And again, that sounds very arrogant. And I'm sorry, but please forgive me for what I'm about to say. I carry a pretty good weight in our community. And if people want to get to me, they got to get to me the right way.
I told you this, I told you it sounds arrogant. Almost everybody that runs for office comes and sees me personally. They make an appointment, they get into my office. I don't pursue them, they pursue me. I mean, not to mention, now I'm going to be a jerk because I know you're here to try to get me to pay attention to Dan Wilson. Dan Wilson has not done a thing to get my attention. He has not called, asked for an appointment, offered to take me to dinner, to lunch. He's not wined and dined me. And you know what? It sounds arrogant, but that doesn't fly with me. I'm an imperfect man and arrogant. Adjustment in our persons. in our behaviors, in our attitudes, in our agendas, in our missions. Do please, Lord, adjust us.
Oh, boy. Uh-oh.
You do sound arrogant. In fact, you are arrogant. My belief is we don't have kings in this country. We don't have nobility. We aren't controlled by the church. We're all equal. The most pathetic thing I think I have ever heard in my life, coming from a man who claims to be a shepherd of a 2,000 person flock, is to think somehow that he's greater than the Apostle Paul or the other apostles. And I didn't do enough to woo him, to get his attention, to approach him the right way. Do you guys understand what Paul Van Noy is saying behind closed doors compared to what he's saying? I roll with real men, hard men that act like men that are followers of Christ should. So yeah, I went, and apparently that pissed you off. To be blunt, but I don't know how else do you not say this other than being so crude to how crude what Paul Van Noy and David Lou Cummings, the former federal agent, were doing in this closed door session. If you're going to Candlelight right now, ask yourself, why are you following a man's advice that is acting the way that he's acting and saying the things in his own words that he's saying? He must think that he's better than all of you. So that was a collage of the last two episodes 42 and 44. And we put it out there because there are many people that still have not seen or heard Paul in his own words. But it obviously gives blowback. Some of the blowback that we've received is things like Preston Hawkins. I'm a sin sniffer. Paul has done remarkable things. Let me find this and read. You can vamp for me for a second while I pull this up.
Yeah, this one, I'm glad that you're pulling that comment up because there are some very specific things to be able to comment or reply on that comment, because it's not, when you read it at first, it's like, well, that sounds good, this guy coming to his defense, but I want to break this down. I think you got that there.
Preston Hawkins. This is just a sample. This came today, so it's relevant. Paul Van Noy has done more to uphold Christian values among citizens, congregates, and politicians than almost anyone I'm aware of in Kootenai County. It is despicable for a self-righteous sin sniffer to take a private conversation with a brother and use it to aggrandize his own organization and ego. Paul has been fearless in his public stand for righteousness. I support the results and blessings of his ministry.
Now, this is exactly what I was talking about a few minutes ago, and it's outcome-based Christianity or outcome-based religion. I'm okay with his actions because the outcome has meant something to me. In my opinion, the outcome is good. So the method and means that he uses to get there, that doesn't matter. Why is that dangerous?
Well, it's because this person, it's like any cult, and it's confirmation bias. You want to be part of, none of us wants our friends to be attacked. In fact, here's one of the things that I can relate this to. Whatever your opinion is on Casey Whalen, I think most of you would agree with me that Casey at least puts in the elbow grease to put out records requests, to put out FOIAs and to search records to be, a beacon of, hey, this is what's going on in government. But Casey really burned his bridge with me when he started publicly spanking me, calling me things like a wannabe high school amateurish petty sheriff candidate, something very close to that, because I had the audacity to play Angelo Brunson and his police video when he voluntarily gave statements to law enforcement while Angelo was coming out of a Asian massage parlor. And Casey burned that bridge with me because, how dare I attack? We later found out it was his friend. None of us want our friends to be attacked. It's our nature to protect them. But when it comes to a church, when you have a leader, and all you have to do is go to julieroys.com and you can scroll years worth of reports on specifically clergy leading very large churches that are involved in very, very bad, unbiblical, sinful, vile things. The problem with a guy like Preston, who should know better because he's a businessman in this community, is that if you don't listen to what they're saying and realize in context, because we played the whole damn thing in context, that Paul Van Noy is an extremely arrogant individual who believes he's a kingmaker, but you don't like the fact that I played a video that was undercover of him saying these vile things. I mean, if you're going to go the same argument with this dipshit, then here's what you also would probably defend. You would probably defend somebody catching a child abuser because they were videoing it when they didn't have permission to. I mean, the logic, the mental gymnastics that you have to do, Preston, to basically take somebody like Paul and exonerate him because all of these great things he's done in the past, does that exonerate him from current or future bad behavior because he did these good things in the past? We've all done good things in the past. Criminals in prison have done good things in the past. But you're going to get hung up on, well, how dare you take a fellow brother's recorded conversation in secret and you since never. I don't know what the hell that is. That's one of the funniest things I've ever heard, though.
That's a highly dangerous philosophy for exactly the reason you stated. You can't just say, hey, we've all done good things, and that exonerates current and future bad behavior. Also an excellent comparison with Casey Whalen, because this is a guy who spends his career, his days, he has spent years and years exposing corruption in the political arena here in Kootenai County, even outside of that, the political and civic space. But you start to understand something about how principled a person actually is when exposing evil and corruption suddenly trounces on somebody who, like Dan said, is their friend or a relative, and it becomes highly uncomfortable, and you feel like, okay, rather than adhere to the principle, it's my first duty to protect my friend. And I think that is something that you hear Pastor Paul Van Noy say over and over again. His loyalties are to people because they're my friend. I know that they've done bad things. I know Bob Norris has done questionable things, but he is my friend. He's always done everything that I've asked him to do. And now suddenly you're talking to a pastor who's preaching weekends and Wednesdays, who is not living by principle, but it's shifting. It is shifting because of friendships and loyalties, and you're never going to be able to follow. It's so nonlinear. What rules apply in that case?
Yeah.
The Stefanie Fetzer investigative report's coming up here soon while Dan and I are still chit-chatting. For anybody who just joined us, we do have that special coming tonight, first time premiere.
Okay.
About 25 minutes, and we're going to watch it.
I have to address this.
Up.
Apparently, Casey Whalen is comment. So, Casey, here you're claiming that you didn't say it. So let me state specifically what you said when you said I was defaming an innocent man. You said, I lost it again. Damn it.
Okay, I'll let you look for that. So,
here it is.
Okay.
Like defending an innocent man. I don't think Kootenai County needs a braggadocious high schooler for sheriff. Look, we went back and forth on this, Casey, but the point is still valid. You were defending Angelo because he is your friend, yet you also are a hypocrite because you believe that human trafficking is taking place, but you want to exonerate your friend because he's your friend and the types of behavior that Angelo was engaging in, while not only a community businessman giving voluntary statements to the police, but also a KCRCC vetted, rated, and endorsed individual. So anyway, enough with that.
I think it seems like Casey Whalen's defense is he's an innocent man.
It doesn't matter because it's the attacks, right? My main point is that you go to defend, usually it's human nature to defend your friends without actually going, yeah, this is kind of bad behavior. That's all I'm saying, Casey,
Well,
is that at the end of the day, we can argue the semantics of it, but to give somebody a pass because he's a pastor or because he's your friend or a former employer, whatever it is, that is not a cool thing for those of us that are seeking the truth. And Casey, you should know that you're a truth seeker. So.
We're going to move on from this in a minute, because for some of you, you're coming in like in the middle of some conversation that doesn't make sense because of previous episodes and some things that we've exposed in the past, even weeks and months ago. And Casey, the last comment on this that I'll do, he'll say he was never charged with anything. You, Dan Wilson, you're a hypocrite and will never be sheriff.
Well, you're right, Casey, because I'm not running again. So I guess theoretically, you're right.
This to what we exposed was Coeur d'Alene police cam footage where Angelo Brunson, that nothing was taken out of context. We were playing body cam footage beginning to end. And the thing that was a complete embarrassment for him and exposed inconsistencies in the guy's life were things that he himself said and were caught on body cam footage from CDA police. So those are the differences of opinion. Dan Wilson never accused Angelo Brunson of being guilty of a crime. Didn't happen.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Casey, grow up. All right. Let's play Paul's most recent response to all the mean people, including Casey. So, I mean, Casey, here's the dumb thing. So many of you, we share many of the same positions. But many of you are so freaking tribal, you can't see the forest from the trees. Let's listen to what Paul has to say about all of us, including you and Dave Riley and others that are coming to attack him.
Everything in context. Just watch everything in context. I'm not sorry for the things I've said. Oh, one more question. Okay. You've saved me from a rant. The rants are good, yes. Some of them. All right. Last question.
You might rant.
Oh, no.
Why do people hate candlelight so much? Why all the drama?
I don't know. Honestly, can I be very clear and not rant? I don't know. Other than satanically inspired hatred. Because we love people. We love our enemies. We pray for our enemies. The people out there that are trying to harm us, I pray for you. Yesterday, I went by name. There's several people that we can identify in our community that we know are actually trying to harm us. And I prayed for you. You guys, if you're listening, I prayed for you by name. I brought you before the Lord because we actually love you. Are we frustrated with you? Yes. Are you hurting people? Yes. All the attacks against Candlelight or against me, you're really not hurting me. You're hurting the people that attend this church. You're hurting families. You're hurting children. My own grandson had to answer a bunch of questions from his schoolmates yesterday because of all the noise out there. I just want to go on record. We love you. We care about you. We want you to understand the gospel of grace and respond to it and inherit the kingdom and the blessings of the kingdom that are yet to come. We want good for you. And by the way, I was mocked. Somebody did a records request. I don't know what they call that official term. A FOIA. To get every single email that I ever sent to Dan Gookin or Dan Gookin sent back to me. And I saw it turn up on Facebook again, and they said, we've got it. Look, Pastor Paul even in his own writing said, I love you, Dan. And you know what? I hate to tell you this. I do. I love him. I love him. Do I agree with him about everything? Heck no. Do I think he's gone crazy in some of his rants? Heck yes. But I will tell you, I love him. And I love every one of our city council members. And I love the people that are part of our neighborhoods. I love the people in the various denominations. They're saying, oh, look at him. He's doing this and he's talking about the different religions. He hates people that are Catholic. He hates people that are Mormon. No, we don't. We love them. And we love them in the name of Jesus. Amen? Amen. Take that home. Rub it. Flake it. Pack it. And smoke it. Father, thank you for this time. We give you praise in Jesus' name.
Yeah, he's a comedian.
Satanic inspired people.
Yeah, satanically inspired hatred.
Yeah. Casey, are you satanically inspired? I know I'm not, so I don't know who he's talking about, but isn't it interesting that he continually says, we love you. We love you. We pray for you. We want to give you the gospel, show you the gospel of grace, and we want good for you. Unless you're running against his friend, the sheriff, who he even states doesn't really have a belief that Bob Norris's faith, according to Paul, is as flaky as mine.
Well, do people understand what it is that he just said there? There is no measure of accountability. If there's wrongdoing, if he has a misstep, if he's lying, spreading lies and gossip and manipulating behind closed doors, and this has been exposed in his own words.
He's arrogant. I didn't.
Self-admitted arrogance, all of those things behind closed doors. And his response is, it's satanically inspired hatred.
Mm-hmm.
What that tells me is there is no measure of accountability. If that's his response, you can never come up against him and expose any wrongdoing, because that would be equivalent to satanically inspired hatred.
I go back to, we got this slide on Corinthians. Quote of the week, 1 Corinthians 13, 4-7. Most of you already know this. Put this into perspective, all of us. But we're talking about Paul Van Noy and what he was just claiming about we love people, we want them to see grace, or satanically, what do you say? Satanically
inspired hatred.
Hatred. But yet, he said things to me like, I got your email, but frankly, it offended me and I threw it away after he'd been telling people that I never emailed him. And then he told people that I didn't go about the right way of, the nonsense.
I guess those lies were no big deal.
Yeah, the arrogance. So again, even though you pre-qualify it by saying, I know this sounds arrogant. Forgive me, I know this sounds arrogant. But let's listen to what it says in 1 Corinthians. Love is patient and kind. Love does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrongdoing, but rejoices with the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Now look, I understand that I myself don't live up to this standard. Those of you that watch this, you probably have your list of those things that I'm violating. But again, we're talking about a shepherd, somebody that has a higher calling, kind of like law enforcement. Not everybody that wants to be can be a pastor. Above reproach, not arrogant, not hostile. So I'm just bringing this up to say, for those of you out there that are still defending Paul Van Noy, when there's been no public repentance for the lies, the arrogance that the dude has exhibited and what he has done. I mean, look at the fracture that he has and his church have committed. We're going to go into this a little more coming right up after this segment of splitting the community because of his agenda, whatever that is.
There's one more thing I want to say on the piece of the message we just listened to. I don't know if that was from last Wednesday, but what I expected him to say when people are coming out and he calls it satanically inspired hatred, he said, what really hurts me is you're not coming against me. What you're really doing is you're not hurting me, you're hurting families, you're hurting children. I was surprised actually when I heard him say, you're not really hurting me. What I expected before, when I was listening to it the first time, I expected him to say, if somebody really is spreading slander and falsely accusing him of something, I expected him to say, you're really going after God and you're hurting God. But he didn't say that. It's all protective of himself, Candlelight Church. You're hurting families. You're hurting children.
Well, is it me or is it Casey or is it Dave Riley or what?
A combination.
Well, let's move on to something that is very similar to that. And that is something that Casey Whalen brought to us. We're going to go to the slide first, if you've got it. This was a pretty fascinating slide. And basically, he did a records request. Those of you that have been following local politics know that apparently Candlelight, in their support of mayoral candidate Dan Gookin over the Kootenai County Republican Central Committee's choice of Debbie Loffman, caused this huge rift. And they had planned this event. It was a Q&A with not only Dan Gookin, they being Candlelight cronies, those that are close to Paul. We've talked about them before. And it was a bait and switch. So what they did is they set up Dave Riley. They punked Dave Riley, similar to what he and Aaron did to Tom Luna back at the state convention a couple of years ago with Pizzagate. Aaron, though, doesn't like Riley anymore, I guess. So anyway, the long and short is that they said that there was going to be an event. Dave Riley and others came to confront Gookin, apparently. And at 90 minutes prior to the event, they were going to meet up at a food court and a bunch of taco trucks and, the typical food carts. They started also spreading, they being the Candlelight people, allegedly started spreading these flyers saying that it was going to be an anti-Semitic group coming up there, a white supremacist, and beer and pizza, and causing havoc. 90 minutes prior to this event, at the last minute, Stefanie Fetzer changed the venue without telling, I guess, the public, meaning Dave Riley and Casey Whalen and others, that the event was going to be changing locations. Riled a bunch of people up, then called law enforcement on Dave Riley and the group, claiming that they were there to bring their own pizza and beer and cause problems. So we're just going to show you this. We'll make it widescreen for those that want to see this. Casey did a good job. He went and he got the records of who made the call to law enforcement. So it appears from what Casey posted that Stefanie Fetzer, who you see in this photo, was the individual responsible for orchestrating this and then calling law enforcement, wasting their resources, I might add, to report something that was similar to kind of what happened to Mike Marcord when Mike Petum called law enforcement and lied about an alleged assault with a vehicle. Okay, so we're going to play this video now that Casey was able to, he received it from the property manager of this food court, interviewed her, and this is what we're going to listen to is his interview of the lady over the telephone.
I am returning a call.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for calling me back. I'm just an independent journalist, and I was kind of working on a story. There was a group of people at the Prairie Pavilion. I think it was last week. They had the.
It was about 3 weeks ago. Is this the one that was? Oh God, I can't think of what they were.
It was on October 27th.
Yep.
Yeah. So someone handed out some flyers that said that a group of people were white supremacists, and I was just curious what, because it looks like in the police report you had them trespassed, and I was just curious, kind of some background on that.
Well, they were not given permission. They didn't ask if they could be there. They just started handing out information and saying that they would provide pizza and beer, and you can't have your own product there. The pavilion is for people that have come to use the pavilion to eat from the vendors that are serving their food there. So they did not have permission to sponsor a thing there or even hold a thing. They did not contact it. They just picked a place, and that's where they went.
Okay. And from what I understand, there was a prior event that was supposed to be there, a meet and greet with Dan Gookin. So it sounds...
There was nothing ever lined up with me. I'm the one that approves the things, and they have to meet my criteria.
Okay.
They have to use the vendor's food, and they cannot bring their own alcohol. That's illegal. Mm-hmm. And to serve it, that's another illegal thing, and that was that's how we got them for trespassing.
Okay. And I mean, just from what I understand, there was no outside food or alcohol. So anyway, just FYI, just.
Well, that's what you heard. But on the paper, it says we will furnish pizza and beer.
Uh-huh.
That's what it said on the paper.
Do you know where those flyers came from?
I have no idea. I just have a copy of one on my phone that was sent to me from one of the vendors. Each of the vendors, they received one.
Uh-huh. Okay.
And, we're drawing people to use the vendor's trucks, not to bring their own food in. We do not let people bring their own food in.
Okay. Yeah, and just last thing, I heard that, from what I understand, this Stefanie Fetzer is the one that organized this meet and greet with Dan Gookin, and she was saying online she was planning to meet there at the Prairie Pavilion that night at 5:30, and that's, from what I understand, that's why the other group of people showed up, was to ask him some tough questions.
There's a difference between hearing and actually knowing what was going on, and I have the flyer, and I mean, I don't have it in my possession. I just have a copy of it on my phone, and it does say we will furnish pizza and beer.
Right, but those flyers were not handed out by the people that showed up to ask Dan tough questions. So
I'm not going to go any further on this,
Sure.
and I'm not going to try to justify the situation. It happened, and it happened in the wrong way, and I have to stand up for the owner and for each one of those vendors that are trying to make a living there.
Sure, I understand.
What they did was wrong, and I contacted the police. It took me some time to do it because I was actually out of town at that time, but we got the situation taken care of because they did not have my approval to be there.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, ma'am. I appreciate it.
I would encourage you to go to, on X, Casey Whalen, and see his reporting on this, because he did a job of piecing together this group that Paul Van Noy sanctions. And let me tell you again, Donna, you're going to tell us even far more eloquently and more articulated than I can, that these people advise Paul Van Noy. They hang out together. And this is an extension of Candlelight Christian Fellowship. So the people that are telling you in the various posts on social media or saying it on videos, whatever, all the good traditional Christian speakies, and then they do things like lie and deceive others. And again, I get it. I wouldn't want my event, because I did them last year, interrupted by Dave Riley and others, right? It's an uncomfortable thing. We're here to tell what we're going to do, not to be ambushed. I get it. I get why Dave Riley, who's tied with the great Brent Reagan and the KCRCC, why they're at odds with Candlelight. I get that. I get why people don't like Dan. I get why people do like Dan. But when it comes to lying and deceiving, like Fetzer and Barnard and David Lou Cummings, we forgot to mention that. David Lou Cummings, the former federal agent, DHS human trafficking agent, supposedly retired, that was in those I keep calling them transcripts, the audio recordings that we released last week. She and her husband, who is a former Border and Customs helicopter pilot, they were there standing in the parking lot. Remember, they're part of that Stefanie Fetzer, Aaron Barnard, Paul Van Noy group. They were standing outside. Casey got good video of them. But this is the people that are destroying any kind of conservative movement inside this community, along with the KCRCC's horrible choices. You guys are all imploding this entire thing because none of you can play by the rules or behave yourselves.
Well, what are the rules? And that was one thing that actually Dave Riley on one of his recent live streams, he brought this to light, because this is what both sides are doing, whether you agree with Riley or Fetzer or Paul Van Noy or Brent Reagan, any of them. Dave Riley references, I think it was Rules for Radicals. You can jump in and correct me. And it was, we will deploy whatever tactics necessary because the only thing that matters is having that political
the means
win.
Justify the ends.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he admitted that there's, without shame.
Well, I mean,
that
Riley. Look, Riley's not a bastion of truth or good behavior. In fact, I can't stand the dude. I absolutely cannot stand him because he does extremely stupid things. Like, I'm going to somehow in Kootenai County, I'm going to register as a Democrat. I'm going to infiltrate the Democratic Party because nobody's smart enough in this county to know what I look like because I blend in so well. And then I'm going to run for governor as a Democrat.
Yeah. I want to recenter this because the point being that there's a lot of people that view Riley as a bad dude because he's extremist. But the reality is he is doing whatever tactics necessary. He can make up the rules to justify the end politically, to get what he wants. But Stefanie Fetzer, Aaron Barnard, who would denounce Dave Riley, they're doing the same thing because that what's been exposed and what Casey Whalen exposed is they set those guys up by creating a flyer that didn't come from Dave Riley and his group, but they knew that Dave Riley and his group would arrive on that scene when they changed scenes last minute. So the whole thing was a setup. And then you got the owner operators of the food cart coming after Riley and his group, but they didn't do it. Now, again, Riley's himself has manipulated the system and done the same tactics. So you could say, look, they all deserve each other.
There's something kind of common with these perpetually broke individuals that want to call themselves journalists.
That too. Yeah.
You are not loyal to the truth. You're loyal to whoever is. I mean, Riley, I got him on video, a clip where he said he's never made more than $60,000 a year or something. So, I mean, look, we're off track. Let's go ahead and set up what we're about ready to watch because this really is the main event and this needs to be watched by as many as possible.
Yes. And we're going to watch this together. We're doing a premiere of an investigative report on Stefanie Fetzer, who's just one of our county's political and religious figures and probably misunderstood in a lot of ways. And for any of you who say, this is not a familiar name to me, I'm going to check out at this point, do not do that. You need to listen to this because what you're going to understand is that the Stefanie Fetzer's name is tied into so many of these others who are influential in the religious community here in Kootenai County and in the political landscape, which spills over into the civic space. There are those of you who said, I don't really have a head for politics. I'm not in that game, but you've been hugely affected by the events surrounding Charlie Kirk and then how that's rolled out in communities with organizations being created all across the United States. So I want you to stay with us. We're watching this live together as it premieres, and I want you to get involved in the discussion right there in your comment section and engage in an active conversation as we're watching this together. And again, one more reminder, share this feed to your page or profile so that more of us are watching this together at the same time. Looking for Stefanie Fetzer, it began when she appeared suddenly and strategically inside local politics. Within just months, she had embedded herself into nearly every sphere of influence in Kootenai County, rolling with political heavy hitters, aligning with power player pastor Paul Van Oy, and forming nonprofits like TradFam and the newly launched Kootenai County Turning Point USA Faith Hub. What's remarkable isn't just how fast she rose, it's how deep her reach now goes. From churches to campaigns, from the county's most powerful networks to its newest organizations, Stefanie Fetzer has positioned herself at the intersection of politics, religion, and influence. Now, who is she really? What's driving her sudden prominence? And what does it reveal about the growing alliance between politics, faith, and power right here in Kootenai County? After watching, you can decide for yourself. Before she ever appeared in North Idaho, Stefanie Fetzer was already a familiar name in California activist circles. In 2019, she co-founded Freedom Angels, a Sacramento-based protest movement that branded itself as a medical freedom organization. That September, protests at the California Capitol escalated, and news coverage confirms several arrests, including two of Fetzer's co-founders, Denise Aguilar and Tara Thornton. Fetzer appeared on Facebook Live immediately afterward, naming those arrested, describing the scene in detail, and taunting California Highway Patrol troopers, revealing her insider position.
There have been 14 arrests made so far. I don't know who all, other than Tara Thornton, Heidi Light, Denise Marie, I think Sandra RN, and I don't know who the others are. I'm texting with, they're allowing Heidi to text right now. You guys are going to go down in history. We just don't know which side they're going to go down on. You guys know Gavin Newsom put you under the bus today? He said you guys made the decision to be here. He said he doesn't have anything to do with it.
Then came something even more telling. In a recorded call, a whistleblower claimed that Freedom Angels organizers already knew in advance who would be arrested that day.
There were planned arrests. 2 women were chained to the entry doors of the Capitol. They were planned by the Freedom Angels and I believe Parents United for Kids, but I'm not sure. And then I was unaware of that, obviously.
Based on that whistleblower's account, the arrests weren't spontaneous, they were choreographed. That detail underscores how coordinated and how connected the group really was within the activist and political networks of Sacramento. I've had informants who were involved in the Sacramento political scene at the time Stefanie Fetzer was part of the Freedom Angels group tell me that they have evidence through an email chain that the arrests that happened at the Sacramento Capitol that day were pre-planned, all the way down to who specifically would be arrested, namely those founders and people closely associated with the Freedom Angels group, Denise Aguilar, Tara Thornton, Heidi Light, and a woman who went by Sandra RN on her social media accounts. However, the person in possession of those emails hasn't come forward and produced that due to fear of retaliation. And without that evidence, I can't state definitively that these specific people were being arrested pre-planned as part of their political dog and pony show, but at bare minimum, it is suspect that the leaders and coordinators of this protest event were somehow just randomly plucked from a group of hundreds and hundreds of protesters who were at the Sacramento Capitol that day. What we do know is that these political operatives are well versed in political theater. They know what to do to get arrested, and that is evidenced here in a leaked message from Shauna Lambert. She's a political activist and personal friend of Stefanie Fetzer. It should be noted that Shauna has since left the political scene in Sacramento and is in lockstep with Fetzer right here in Kootenai County. In this leaked message from 2019, Shauna Lambert talks about the coaching that their activists receive on how to get arrested. The message states this: they know they will get arrested. I don't believe some, but some I do believe. There have been discussions already with people who have been involved in direct action protests for years. How they do it, who you have do it, usually people without young kids, bail money ready to go, etc. Stefanie and I have been discussing this for about 2 months. Please do not share that with anyone.
We've got Crystal. That's a lock that has her chained to the door. No entrance or exit on this side today. They said, we're going to call the CHP. They're going to ask you 3 times. If you don't get down, you will be arrested. And so they asked everyone to leave the room and they were threatening arrest. Well, then 40 minutes pass and they say the CHP is not coming. Well, it's no secret why they didn't come. They can't afford for these women to be visible in the media because they don't fit Senator Pan's narrative of evil, violent terrorists.
They know us and we are peaceful.
We're peaceful, loving mothers and fathers trying to protect our children.
Thank you, lady.
Another thing the Freedom Angels group has been accused of doing by people who had at one time been supporters is creating nonprofits and mismanaging funds, including raising funds for legal costs and bail money, which would, in theory, benefit those who they'd coach to be arrested. But then the money they were raising was not being used to benefit those suffering the consequences of those arrests. While I'm not accusing Stefanie Fetzer of spearheading this, she was a leader in the Freedom Angels group and used that group to further her political interests, and has a track record of creating nonprofit and PAC organizations herself. Around this same time, Fetzer co-founded a political action committee called Parents United for Kids, raising money around vaccine and education issues. Those PAC filings and nonprofit registrations placed her firmly inside Sacramento's web of grassroots political activism. But Fetzer's reach went well beyond health policy. She was named by state Senate candidate Austin Bennett as someone working behind the scenes on political hit pieces, a sign that her activism was already blurring into campaign operations and opposition work.
I don't know, maybe it could be Stefanie Duncan Fetzer because she's furious at me.
She also cultivated an unusually familiar connection to Robert F. Kennedy Jr., referring to him casually as Bobby in her own social media posts, a tone suggesting personal proximity or at least the desire to project that. And while all this unfolded, her circles intersected with others who were later swept up in federal investigations. In the Alan Hostetter case, Hostetter described a 2019 private meeting of California activist leaders, a gathering that included individuals tied to the Freedom Angels network, including Fetzer herself. Hostetter wrote that the vast majority of those in attendance at this meeting worked in some way for the FBI and/or U.S. intelligence agencies or at the behest of third parties or secret societies. That statement offers a rare window into the climate of suspicion and infiltration surrounding California's activist scene. And it underscores just how deeply embedded Fetzer had become in the overlapping ecosystem of political influence, protest movements, and law enforcement awareness in both San Clemente and Sacramento, long before she ever arrived in Kootenai County. By late 2020, Stefanie Fetzer began cutting ties with her California network. Her Facebook page, once followed by thousands, suddenly vanished. She publicly claimed she was censored, but the timing and precision of her disappearance suggests something more deliberate. This didn't look like censorship, it looked like a calculated reset. Behind the scenes, Freedom Angels had drawn support from Lee Dundas, a high-profile attorney known for her work with human rights causes, and a figure deeply embedded within the Church of Scientology.
We have been partnering up with different advocates across the state, like Lee Dundas, Dr. Cordy Williams, Pastor Tim Thompson, and Vivian, I'm sorry, I don't know her name, from WeHaveRights.com.
Dundas wasn't just a distant ally, she represented the Freedom Angels legally and spoke at their rallies, helping to shape their early public image.
Leah Dundas was the attorney who spoke on our side.
Down? Yes, we're in this together. Look at here, some beautiful speakers. It's Leah Dundas. Woo! Woo! I want to have a nice little photo up here. I think it would be great. Where do you think we should stand? I think we should head over here. Let's go back. I think we should stand.
While direct funding links are not publicly documented, a whistleblower familiar with the group stated that a Scientologist-affiliated organization financially supported the Freedom Angels. What is verifiable is that attorney Lee Dundas, a prominent figure within Scientology, represented and promoted the Freedom Angels during this time period. In Scientology circles, it's widely understood that collaboration typically stays within their own network, which makes Dundas's close involvement a strong indicator of the group's deeper connections. That means Stefanie Fetzer wasn't just adjacent to the movement, she was inside the circle, part of a network intertwined with Scientology influence at its highest levels. If those connections hold true, the implications are enormous. In Kootenai County, Fetzer presents herself as a Bible-believing Christian aligned with conservative pastors and faith-based organizations. But her past ties to Scientology, a belief system that stands in fundamental opposition to biblical Christianity, that would represent a massive ideological and ethical conflict. When Fetzer quietly attempted to erase her California footprint and then resurfaced here in North Idaho, it appeared to be more than just a move across state lines. It looked like a deliberate reinvention, a shift from her ties to Scientology-linked activism to a new image as a Christian conservative community leader. But she didn't cover her tracks completely. The breadcrumbs were still there, and by following them, I was able to uncover the story that she left behind. When Stefanie Fetzer arrived in North Idaho, she didn't quietly assimilate, she embedded. Within months, she'd woven herself into nearly every sphere of civic and political power in Kootenai County. She aligned herself with the Kootenai County Republican Central Committee and attended the high-profile Lincoln Day dinners while also promoting KCRCC-endorsed candidates like Sheriff Bob Norris. At the same time, she built strong ties inside Candlelight Christian Fellowship, where she currently uses an @candlelightchurch.org email address, signaling she wasn't just a congregant, but part of the organizational machinery. Her alliance with Pastor Paul Van Oy positioned her at the intersection of faith and politics. Publicly, she called him her pastor. Privately, she advised political figures within his orbit, becoming a bridge between religious leadership and political influence. Fetzer also launched or co-launched multiple nonprofit and advocacy projects. TradFam, promoting traditional family initiatives in this region, even receiving a Traditional Family Values Month proclamation from the Coeur d'Alene City Council. Also, Idaho Truth Action PAC, partnering with other local influencers such as Shauna Lambert and Aaron Barnard. And most recently, the Kootenai County Turning Point USA Faith Hub, which Fetzer co-founded. Aaron Barnard of Kootenai County Spectator is also a part of this. And Fetzer says this new TPUSA Faith Hub is in the process of becoming a registered nonprofit. While in the fledgling stage, they've already begun operating publicly through merchandise sales and event partnerships with Candlelight Christian Fellowship. At a recent Charlie Kirk event in Coeur d'Alene's City Park, attendees filled the crowd wearing the new Faith Hub apparel, signaling that the movement is already mobilizing even before its official registration. But even as her influence has grown, cracks are beginning to show. It's now rumored that there's an emerging power clash between the KCRCC and Candlelight Christian Fellowship. Fetzer, who once fundraised for and publicly boosted the KCRCC, has turned against the committee, aligning herself more fully with Van Oy's faction. The religious and political power structure rising in its place. This isn't just a political realignment, it's a fight for dominance over who shapes the conservative narrative in Kootenai County, the party machine or the pulpit. And Stefanie Fetzer is right in the middle of it. Once Fetzer established herself in Kootenai County's political and religious networks, her online behavior began to mirror what she'd done in California, creating echo chambers and controlling both sides of the conversation. Through a forensic linguistic review of dozens of social media posts, a pattern emerged. A Facebook account called Kelly Broderick displayed a 90% plus match to Fetzer's own syntax, phrasing, and punctuation. The Kelly Broderick profile began routinely inserting itself into local debates, attacking one side while defending another. The Kelly Broderick account attacked Fetzer herself, and Fetzer was able to push her ideas and political agenda through her responses to Broderick, which also established that Stefanie Fetzer had the more reasonable take. But the linguistic review of both the Kelly Broderick and Stefanie Fetzer posts points strongly to it being the exact same person. It's a classic tactic. Create the illusion of independent voices supporting your message while discrediting dissent. The Broderick persona also helped her pivot politically, warming up audiences that Fetzer had previously alienated. Most notably, the account paved the way for her alliance with Coeur d'Alene Councilman Dan Gukin, a figure she once mocked publicly, framing their new cooperation as unity for the conservative cause. Behind the digital mask, Fetzer wasn't merely debating, she was engineering narratives, testing public sentiment, and repositioning herself as the rational center of every controversy. As the balance of influence tilts, one question remains. Is Stefanie Fetzer a messenger or a strategist? Through her alliances, nonprofits, and public appearances, from city meetings to Candlelight's political education groups, Fetzer isn't just engaging in civic life, she's working to bend Kootenai County's faith and politics toward an agenda that may not be entirely her own. Who or what guides those actions remains unclear, but the pattern of influence is impossible to ignore. In the next section, we're going to look at how Fetzer leverages faith-based networks to advance political goals, blur institutional boundaries, and influence public opinion under the banner of moral authority. By the 2024 sheriff's race, Fetzer's coordination went far beyond Facebook. She was working closely with Davalu Cummings, a former Department of Homeland Security agent tied to Candlelight Church and Pastor Paul Van Oy. Fetzer helped drive a synchronized campaign to discredit Dan Wilson. The attacks were calculated and used the same words like anti-Semitic, angry, unqualified, dishonest. It appeared all across multiple accounts. Fetzer's posts, Cummings' statements, even official messaging from the Bob Norris campaign and from Pastor Paul Van Oy.
Question for you. I'm going to cut you off. Sorry. Is Dan Wilson a white supremacist? Okay. What's his position on Israel? I'm going to tell you why I'm concerned about it. We see some of the strongest supporters and the noisy ones that are anti-Semites, and that terrifies me. I've listened to him enough to know that I dislike him a lot.
But Fetzer didn't stop there. She aligned herself with Wilson's ex-wife, a woman clearly embittered and eager to settle old scores, and turned that personal grievance into political ammunition. With help from Aaron Barnard, Fetzer propped up the alliance publicly, posting photos, tagging each other on social media, and flaunting their connection as if it were a badge of honor. The narrative, born from bitterness, spread quickly through Candlelight Christian Fellowship, the Altar Church, and local conservative groups online.
Can I tell you what I've heard, and you can tell me if it's true? This is for our conversation. What I've heard is that he was an evangelical Christian, and then he became a Catholic. And then, as a Catholic, he had an affair with his assistant, divorced his wife. His present wife was his former assistant. Now they're married, and he got excommunicated from the Catholic Church because of it. Conversation has not left my lips ever.
What looked like grassroots outrage wasn't grassroots at all. It was scripted, it was organized, and it was designed to drown out the truth and destroy reputations. Fetzer wasn't just repeating talking points, she was weaponizing relationships and writing the playbook for political destruction. By 2025, Stefanie Fetzer's reach formed a complete influence web that extended from pulpits to political podiums. Her footprint includes PACs like Idaho Truth Action, created to amplify campaigns and attack political adversaries. Faith organizations such as TradFam, which she co-founded to promote traditional family values while hosting fundraisers, producing merchandise, and lobbying local government for symbolic resolutions. New ventures like the Kootenai County Turning Point USA Faith Hub, which now operates sometimes inside Candlelight Christian Fellowship, selling merchandise and coordinating messaging at major events like the Charlie Kirk Tour Stop in Coeur d'Alene.
Jesus is King. Amen? Thank you, everyone who came out tonight. Thank you for being obedient to the Lord's calling. Thank you for being here tonight to honor Charlie Kirk, but more importantly, thank you for honoring Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. Special thanks tonight is to Stefanie and Aaron for coordinating all this, bringing a lot of people together, doing a lot of things.
Political alliances with local and state figures, from Sheriff Bob Norris to Senator Ben Taves, and other North Idaho legislators that she routinely promotes across her channels.
Yeah, notice that we don't call names, you do. You call names. Yeah, all of you call names. I said you're a joke, and you are a joke. Yeah, that is what I said. You're a liar. You are a liar. Yeah. Go back to California where you belong. Yeah. You're corrupt. The lot of you, you're corrupt. Corrupt.
Through these overlapping entities, Fetzer has become a gatekeeper of influence, someone who can mobilize churchgoers, volunteers, and voters with a single post or mention from the pulpit. What began as a relocation has evolved into a power consolidation effort.
Happy to have these guys in studio. These are friends of mine, but this is Senator Ben Taves, and this is Stefanie Fetzer, and Stephanie, why don't we start with you and kind of throw her under the bus immediately and start with her and kind of explain who you are and kind of briefly just like what got you into kind of local political activism and why tradfam.org means how that incorporates into your life.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm Stefanie Fetzer. I'm a homeschooling Christian mom of 3 kids. I was really into politics. I come from the state south of Boise, was super involved in politics for years, and then walked away in California saying I'll never be involved again because it was so corrupt until, in 2015, there was a bill introduced to mandate all vaccines on the CDC schedule for homeschool kids. So I jumped back in and sort of never looked back. We moved to Idaho about 5 years ago, not
Looks like we may have lost audio. We're going to check this out real quick here.
I don't know what that would have been. It was all one seamless
It
video.
was at the best point. Let's drag it back there. Maybe we'll get it.
How that incorporates into your life.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm Stefanie Fetzer. I'm a homeschooling Christian mom of 3 kids. I was really into politics. I come from the state south of Boise, was super involved in politics for years, and then walked away in California saying I'll never be involved again because it was so corrupt until, in 2015, there was a bill introduced to mandate all vaccines on the CDC schedule for homeschool kids. So I jumped back in and sort of never looked back. We moved to Idaho about 5 years ago, not
Well, I want you to bring us up on screen. Let's keep playing it. Hopefully that audio will come back. We have a corrupted file.
What I'm going to do, here, hold on. I can only do one thing at a time here. I'm going to let you vamp for a minute. I actually have that segment in a separate location, so I'm going to pull that up.
While
on
Donna's
YouTube.
pulling this up, and of course it wouldn't be a Liberty Without Compromise broadcast without some technical difficulties.
Without a bobble here and there.
But there's a couple of things that were really telling. Heavy involvement with Scientology. That's something that we need to discuss more. Hostetter and his lawsuit, naming, among others, Stefanie as, in this court filing, being involved with the feds, intel community, or local intel. But in other words, working for federal agencies. There is the component of getting involved with the Austin Bennett campaign running interference, similar to what happened with us. There are other things. January 6th, it's my understanding that originally we were being told that Stefanie was going to go with the rest of the Freedom Angels and others from Sacramento over to January 6th, and at the last minute did not attend. But her friend Shauna Lambert that followed her from Sacramento. By the way, Paul Van Noy apparently is from Sacramento too. It must be something in the water. But Shelley Kroll, who was not a fan, in fact, she did a lot of lying and disinformation during our campaign, very vocally, also videoed her responses, is Shauna Lambert's mother. Again, all heavily embedded, Bob Norris, Candlelight, KCRCC, all of these operatives together.
I have this as a redundant segment. I needle dropped. We'll see if the same audio issue is in this one. So we'll try this together to see. We're so close to the end of it. We'll see what we got here.
It must be the feds.
No, yeah.
The feds do not want us to do this.
Let me try it. Hold on.
2015, there was a bill introduced to mandate all vaccines on the CDC schedule for homeschool kids. So I jumped back in and sort of never looked back. We moved to Idaho about 5 years ago, not because of COVID, because of some other things. And I just laid low for a couple years to figure out the lay of the land. And my kids were actually involved in a speech and debate club, which is where I met Senator Taves, because his kids were there too. And I got involved in his campaign, and that was sort of my jumping off point. And he can share more about it, but he's my favorite statesman
awesome.
probably on the planet. And then he founded tradfam.org with a few friends, and I'll let him tell you about it, but it was a no-brainer for me as a Christian, committed to my family, and just wanting to see those values lived out in our community and sort of take back some ground that the left had taken while we were kind of asleep with their Pride Month and all of that stuff. So that was a no-brainer for me. So that's me in a nutshell.
Awesome. Welcome.
She isn't just connected to a few pastors or one sheriff. She is positioned within nearly every conservative structure in the county: the churches, the PACs, the political committees, and the campaigns. Her influence is systematic, not situational. Yet major questions remain. Who opened the door for Stefanie Fetzer's rapid rise in Kootenai County? Why walk away from her growing Freedom Angels brand and her nonprofit Parents United for Kids in California just as they were gaining momentum? Who funded the launch of her new nonprofits, and what role do these organizations play in local election cycles? And how does a political transplant from Sacramento so quickly become an insider in one of Idaho's most tightly controlled political ecosystems? For someone who claimed her activism was born from personal tragedy, a mother fighting for her vaccine-injured twin daughters, her trajectory tells a very different story. Most advocates stay anchored to their cause because that's the focus of their mission. Fetzer abandoned hers the moment new power circles opened up. Until those questions are answered, transparency remains elusive and accountability seemingly impossible.
That was quite a segment, and took a lot of time to put all that together. You've been discussing with your witnesses and informants, whistleblowers, for many, many months. Folks, I want you guys to remember, Dan and Dawna never went out and just randomly said, we don't like this person, and decided that we're going to start picking on them and we're going to expose them or run a hit piece. This is the result of people that behave horribly while claiming that they're followers of Christ, or that they're conservatives, that they are patriots, and they act like unbelieving Democrats. No offense to the Democrats. Every person that we ever discuss went out of their way to cause interference or to attack or to malign or to lie or to sabotage. Stefanie Fetzer came right out of the woodwork. And the things that she was saying in the very beginning were so far out there. Again, somebody that is in one breath going to be acting like I'm a most virtuous Christian, and can't we all just Maranatha, do these things that we're supposed to do to support the church, and then at the same time spreading complete 100% false propaganda. I mean, I said this last week, out of the blue. There are so many videos on me during the run for sheriff, and people have known me in this community. I've lived in this region my entire life. Out of the blue. What's your stance on Israel? Alluding to somehow that I was anti-Semitic, totally out of the blue. And after a while, you go, that's weird.
Mm-hmm.
That is really, really weird. I mean, I don't go up to somebody out of the blue and just go, hey, Stefanie, are you gay? What's your view on gays? I mean, they're just bizarre things that people do and they say.
Well, she would say she's not running for office and you were. So she had the right to bring forward the tough questions.
Did you ever ask Bob Norris about the large Confederate flag in his garage? I mean, the point is that we, after enough time, really realize that there are these groups. It's obviously the KCRCC operatives, and some of them cross back and forth, like Nina Beasley. Nina Beasley, it was tied into some of these groups, and Terry Seymour, but now there's a split because they're not following the great Zambino, Brent Reagan. And they've split. So they're trying for these different factions. And what I was looking at when you were, and I wrote some of these notes down, is she starts these nonprofits.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens to the money? Where's the accountability in these 501c3s?
Yeah, and those are some of the things. You can spend countless hours talking to people or informants who were in Stefanie Fetzer's sphere of influence at that time that she was in Sacramento. I mean, you can spend hours on end talking, and I'm hearing their firsthand accounts. And while I do believe what's being said, I also that I am not going to present certain things without evidence. But one thing that was shared to me from somebody who had been involved in that medical freedom movement and watched the Freedom Angels that Fetzer was a founding member of, watched their inner operations. They spoke to this woman. They really spoke to where she was at in her life at that time. She didn't necessarily share political views, but she was on board with the message that they were putting out there that we need to have choice in the medical field, choice to not have to vaccinate our kids and those things. And she's like, look, this is good. We don't need government control in this area. And so this gal was on board. What she started to see was the breakdown of that Freedom Angels organization and accusations being made that what they were doing were things like coordinating arrests at the state capitol. Mm-hmm. And they were raising funds for bail money, attorney fees, and those sorts of things. But while $74,000 was raised through a GoFundMe, there was never any account for that money. And again, this is her account that I do not have the evidence of. While I believe her, I don't have the evidence to show you because they're afraid to go on record or to find those documents to really 100% prove. But that the money was not being used for the reason that they said they were raising it. And so that is one example of an organization that Fetzer was involved in where they're raising money and there's no track record, and the people who were their pawns were suffering the legal and financial consequences. And then there were issues with the Parents United for Kids, another nonprofit that Stefanie Fetzer created and that we do have evidence of. And things were not done correctly on the back end. So here you are.
Weird.
You're supposed to be transparent. You're asking people to give their money, and your paperwork is not filed in the way that it should be. So those are some of the accusations being made from people who are on the scene in Sacramento in that 2018, 2019 era before Fetzer arrived on scene in Kootenai County.
Yeah, I mean,
And that gives me concern because the MO now, I mean, we just in this investigation, we uncovered 3 that she's directly involved in. And I know there's actually another political action committee that she and Aaron Barnard and Shauna Lambert are a part of. And I mean, some of that you can see the financial reporting, but the point being, typically when somebody is on a cause politically, it's coming that her position was, if her children were vaccine injured is part of the story, you become active in that arena because it's something that affected your life. And so for her to go hard after that cause makes perfect sense. What doesn't make sense is when it started to devolve into so many other areas of the political scene there in Sacramento, as we showed you tonight, and then what she's doing now. Why you take somebody whose story that tugs at your heartstrings is, I want medical freedom. I want to keep your families and your children safe. My kids were vaccine injured. Here's the tale I have to tell. And again, I can't, that's one of the things too, is whistleblower that I was speaking with said what they do is, and again, I'm not accusing Fetzer of this, but what they have been trained to do is you'll put forward stories that it's something that cannot be medically proven or disproven. That somebody said, but it tugs at your heartstrings and it pulls people into the movement. So you have Fetzer, who was a leader in that medical freedom movement, and then in a sheriff's race in Kootenai County, a handful of years later, is a massive detractor for the sheriff's race in Northern Idaho.
And let's stop and look at this for a second, folks, because you need to understand the totality of what we're saying. Look, I get it. We talked about this earlier. We advocate for our friends, sometimes to theirs and our own demise. So I get why some people would say, well, look, we don't care what your qualifications are or what kind of guy you are. We're just not for you because we're for our other guy. But consider this. Part of the problem when you look at the Candlelight people, you look at the KCRCC, tell me if I'm wrong. These are people that outwardly claim they're for families, they're for conservatism, homeschooling, people of faith, business owners, pro law enforcement. I mean, I went down the line and had so many of these things that these people are either legislating, they're promoting. And here I am, a first generation homeschool kid. And all of these people that homeschool their kids and they talk the talk. I homeschooled my 5 children as well. I'm a business owner. For almost 30 years.
What about vaccinations? These are
I've never vaccinated any of my kids. I know, shock before. I mean, my oldest is 26.
But the point is,
I never vaccinated. And so ask the question, why were these people not only just saying, look, Bob's our guy, but why did they, including Paul Van Noy, why did they go out of their way to not just be inhospitable, but to be destructive? And why do they continue to be destructive? And what kind of pantheism is going on? I mean, this Charlie Kirk, TPUSA Faith Hub, everything that I have seen of it so far is pantheism. It's part of the New Apostolic Reformation, where they believe, kind of like the guys down in Moscow, Idaho, that you're going to, with the 7 Mountain Mandate, you're going to take over all of these different parts of the country, and you're going to fill them with all these Christians, and then at the end of the day, God's going to come back.
It's taking over everything.
Yeah.
Arts, entertainment, politics, religion, the church, everything.
But I keep coming back and saying it's not what's going on. Now, there was a comment by Olivia here just a second ago, alluding to something. Let's see if I start it. Almost like, okay, so I'm gonna show this. She said earlier, it's almost as though the feds have a plan for our once sleepy little area. I don't think that that's really that far out of the question. When you start peeling back all these layers, I know we're just the crazy Wilsons that didn't win a sheriff race and we won't go away. We've heard it all. But where have you guys in your contradictory evidence to challenge and say otherwise? I mean, I'll start. Kootenai County was ripe for somebody to take over. One of the last untapped areas, you had Spokane, you have Boise, you have Kalispell, but you have this very special place called Kootenai County. And don't think for a second that all the big global powers were not vying for control of Kootenai County. And when you see a community that used to be mostly blue dog Democrats, tradesmen, loggers, miners, now swing super ultra right, start looking at some of the idiotic things that have taken place that many of you are so proud of. And I get it. I understand why you're proud of it. But did you ever stop to think that maybe the feds, who even Trump cannot control apparently, that these people that we call the fourth column or the deep state don't have plans for this area and haven't put these plans into place for a long time? Why are all these people from Sacramento, as it was stated earlier, up here? Gunda Lane. I understand, and I'm pro Second Amendment. Shall not be infringed, period. But how many of you never stop to consider that maybe by converging all down to confront C-string Antifa, and that's what they were, that the feds were in there videoing every individual that attended, getting license plates, grabbing pictures of your guns, and then coming back and taking another inventory when there was an appreciation dinner later on. You have Bob Norris, who came from Los Angeles, his last station working for Homeland Security. We've got the organizational chart. Bob Norris claims that he was trained right after 9/11 because of his special ability. They singled him out to train him for anti-terrorism things. He trained with the Mossad. He trained with the FBI and the Department of Justice. And then you have Bruce Matari that came from Washington, D.C. Bruce Matari's a special deputy that's the county commissioner. Bruce Matari's father, from what we've been told, was a Bolivian general. It's a communist regime. And then Bob Norris's wife, we've been told her father had ties to the Khmer Rouge. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know. I have no idea. That's speculation. But all the people that keep converging up here into this area, like David Lou Cummings. We're going to play here in another week her question to Nate Lewis at The Innocent that was talking about law enforcement and being able to be equipped by The Innocent to better conduct sting operations on human trafficking that Bob Norris, the current sheriff, claims does not exist. And I think you'll find it as interesting as I do when you realize that she was a Homeland Security special agent in human trafficking for 15 years, and the type of questioning that she was asking publicly that night. She's heavily embedded with Bob Norris. You saw last week when she was reshaping the narrative in the conversation that she had with the former parishioner of trying to paint me as an extremist and plan ideas. What is going on over here? Why is billionaire dollars from Nevada and California finding its way up here to local politics? It's been said that Candlelight might very well be a hub for the feds to be able to keep track of all the extremists or the altar church. At the same time, I've got questions. Why is the altar church and why is Candlelight engaged in some of the stuff that they've been engaged with? Now, one of the things, kind of switching gears, the Scientology. Talk to me about the Scientology component of this conversation with Fetzer.
There is a photo that I personally saw that one of the founding members of the Freedom Angels there in Sacramento was a hub for them that Fetzer was a co-founding member of. I personally observed a photo with one of those gals and another leader in Scientology. And then, of course, we've shown the proof of Lee Dundas, who's a human rights attorney who was very actively involved in their movement. I know I can skim the surface of Scientology. I looked a little more into it after my informant was telling me that there was evidence that Freedom Angels had received funding of it. But again, the concern is the human rights attorney that's working with them, who's completed her courses, and there's documented proof of that. The ties are there. And the overarching point is that it is just a known thing that Scientologists don't work outside of their circle. They just don't. They don't work with.
So is that your opinion or what?
It is you can listen to Leah Remini, who's been a Hollywood
King
actress
of Queens,
who was pulled out of the movement. And you can hear direct testimonials from people who have been inside the movement, who know these things in the inner workings of the movement itself. But the danger there, and the other rumor is that, and where we have to be careful, because on the ideals, we agree with medical freedom. But the rumor is that the medical freedom movement, because that also is highly lucrative, the medical medical, what word am I searching for?
Community.
The medical industry is obviously highly lucrative, and so we want to reject that now that so many of us are seeing that clearly. But the medical freedom movement is also highly lucrative, and the rumor is that the medical freedom movement is Scientology backed.
So this would be interesting because I have heard, again, maybe those of you out there that are smarter than me know the answer to this. Is Robert Kennedy, or Bobby as Stephanie calls him, is Bobby part of the Scientology church?
Yeah, that's a question to throw out there. A couple of things I want to counteract, because I also know, look, Stephanie has had, I used to say a decade. It's been, now hearing even her own accounts, it's been 2 decades. And we heard that in the podcast interview she just did. She was in the political arena for a good decade, or for a time there in Southern California, and then she stepped back, and then she was back in it again with the medical freedom movement. But so there's a couple of things in this investigation that what I was going to say is she's very adept at coming back and discounting and discrediting anything that you say to expose what she's doing. I get that. And she's a very good storyteller, much like Paul Van Noy. It is an art. So a couple of things to say. I had mentioned in the investigation that she was attempting to erase her footprint from her days in Sacramento.
Oh, kind of like Bob Norris.
Yeah, but she'll laugh about that because it's selective. She would never have wanted to completely erase it, because she had to keep it as a resume, so to speak, to give her credibility to come in and be advocating and advising here in Kootenai County. So she couldn't completely erase it, but there were certain things that she actually would have had to go out of her way to detach herself from, because it's going to expose a lot of the corrupt and bad behavior that she was doing, or people that she was involved with. So you will go to Fetzer's own profile and you will see pictures of that protest at Sacramento, and she's going to say, ha ha ha, yeah, right. I mean, I'm obviously referenced this when I talk about it, so this is nothing I'm trying to hide. I get that, but that's why we dug deeper in the investigation, because there's more to it than what she's going to tell you.
It was interesting because you had the court filing by Hostetter, who, if I understood correctly, was a former chief of police, was arrested on January 6th. And I think that he was apprehended by Northern California DOJ. But in his filing, he listed several people that he claimed, and you guys all know this, by the way, just to be clear, it is finally coming out. Many of you North Idaho Republicans that think this was crap, the feds set up January 6th on the Capitol. I don't give a shit whether or not you think that's true or not. It is overwhelmingly positive that the feds were there to agitate and to cause chaos, to form a narrative. We all know this. So you have this guy that was, I guess, arrested for being there at January 6th, and he literally names those in his as part of his defense. He starts naming those that he believes are federal informants, federal agents, or working for other intel agencies or local government as part of setting this up.
And 2 of those, one was Stefanie Fetzer, and the other name right under hers in that legal documentation is Lee Dundas, Scientologist and human rights attorney. So it's just that there's enough proof there that these people were in unison to a point where they're moving through that movement together for whatever, even if you could say, well, they had different and individual purposes, it's tied together. The other quick disclaimer is there was a clip in there from a recent Kootenai County Charlie Kirk event. And I don't want to get off into the weeds because I said that this new organization, the Kootenai County Faith Hub, that Fetzer and Barnard are putting together, that was a Charlie Kirk tour stop. It wasn't. It was an early event that they did. It was like a praise and worship thing that they did in the park down there in Coeur d'Alene. So that was not an official tour stop event, but Stephanie's documented on saying that is one of the things that she plans on hosting and getting other churches in the area to participate in that. And then her and Aaron Barnard, Fetzer and Barnard, are co-founders Well, if they have yet to register that nonprofit, it was in the work, but they're already selling stuff.
Yeah, and Candlelight's helping them.
And proceeds going to the Kootenai County TPUSA Faith Hub.
Okay, lastly, before we start wrapping this up, because we're going to come back and address this in the weeks to come. Kelly Broderick. Tell me about Kelly Broderick. Whatever you're comfortable right now, and because we don't want you to give everything away, obviously, but with Kelly.
Well, I think I gave it.
But there's some other behind the scenes.
I gave it away.
Give us a kind of let's go over that again. So Kelly started showing up.
The Kelly Broderick, this is what you pay. These people are not on your radar. Again, like Dan said, we don't go to seek them out. They show up and become a dissenting voice. They can't help themselves anymore. And they got to get on and run your mouth on something that we're posting. Mm-hmm. And one time, two time, whatever, you disregard it. But when you start to see a reoccurring theme, you're like, okay, now I got to go look who this is. And then you look and you see it is a recent created profile. So it's something we call a sock puppet or a burner profile. And what I did is I know when I'm interacting with a burner profile, I get it. And I decided one day, I am going to intentionally interact with this burner profile and create an argument, engage in the argument in order to collect as much textual information as I can. And I started to notice the writing patterns, the writing thumbprints, as you will, as having great similarities to Stefanie Fetzer's syntax and the way she'll write words in all caps or upper and lowercase. I call it the SpongeBob. And that's something that both Stefanie Fetzer and Aaron Barnard do. I think created by Barnard, probably because Aaron and Lucky watch SpongeBob. So they got the upper lowercase that when they're doing an argument to make you feel like a fool. It's their way of arguing by text. And my belief is it's something that Fetzer picked up from Barnard. Well, those same kind of fingerprints in the writing were very apparent in that Kelly Broderick profile. So I ran that through a handwriting analysis because I had pages of written word from both the Kelly Broderick profile and Stefanie Fetzer profile, and was able then there was so much data there to cross compare. It wasn't like from one comment here and one comment there. It was pages. And that's what it came, it comes back with, it's in the high 90th percentile that it is the same person or somebody. And this is where they'll win the argument. It's not me. It's Beverly Gwinnett. It's Beverly Gwinnett. Yeah. Well, okay.
By the way,
we also
a bunch of candlestick. I was going to say candlestick. Candlelight Fellowship members.
Yeah.
That are very active on X. That are anti-Gookin but pro-Paul.
Yeah.
Let me restate that. They're anti-KCRCC now and pro-Paul, pro-Gookin. Wanted to keep challenging on this because now we're attacking their Fetzer.
Well, yeah. So you got Van Oy protecting Fetzer and Barnard and their bad behavior. That's embarrassing. But we know, again, you can create a sock puppet profile and it doesn't mean more than one person isn't responsible for it or can't log into it. So I don't care if you're three, if it's Aaron and Lucky and Stephanie and whoever else you
I've
recruited
had personal
to keep up with
emails
it.
Back and forth with Beverly. Beverly is incapable of having that kind of a conversation.
It's that, but it's also, you got to understand, it's not the syntax and framing and lettering and the way somebody types of an 80-year-old woman. Yeah. It's not. So it is not Beverly Gwinnett. I don't care what anybody says. We found what we found. And then one more thing to call in this episode, because what these people do is to create accounts on social media to give that sense that there's either they're wanting to create an argument and have a back and forth. Yeah. So they're doing one to make an argument and then they're responding to it to be able to get their argument out there, or they're doing it to go around and wreak havoc in comment section on other things and sway public opinion, when in reality, it's not as many. It makes you feel like there are these vast numbers when you've got operatives that are creating burner accounts, sock puppet accounts, and So it's a few people making it look like it's many more. So we had one on the broadcast tonight, and I'm going to bring this up because it's relevant to exactly this, and then I'm done. We're moving on. But there's a burner account called Andre Planchian. And we heard a rumor that there's somebody in the inner circles, even of Candlelight, that is a political operative that spends his time, his or her time, making these sock puppet accounts that wouldn't be Stefanie Fetzer.
Former intel.
But these former intel, but these people all run together. That's the point. So Andre Planchian's a brand new one that's popped up to come in and ridicule, and he did it on tonight's broadcast. He or she, sorry, because again, you don't know, it's anything, anybody's guess. They this account came into tonight's broadcast and made a comment, but deleted it.
Oh,
just so you know.
Oh,
but they're sock puppet accounts, and it's the same people in the inner circle. You saw in that investigation there how interconnected, just when you go from Stefanie Fetzer. I mean, that doesn't even address Davalu Cummings and then what her sphere is and then how that connects. You'd have to get a chart out and start diagramming the whole thing. But these people, they're all interconnected. So it doesn't, Stefanie Fetzer can't prove or disprove that she's the sock, is or isn't the sock puppet profile of Kelly Broderick. But I did a pretty good job of proving that it is either her or somebody in her close sphere of influence. So there you go. And she can't prove that it isn't her. Yeah. End of story.
Yeah. Well, we covered quite a bit tonight. I'll say it again. For those of you who think that we just are out to attack people, to attack them, that is not the case. It's called justice. If you call yourself a follower of Christ, if you call yourself a patriotic, America-loving patriot, Republican, conservative, whatever, and you behave contrary to these things, instead of arguing your piece in the public square, when you go out on smear attacks like Barnard did, like Stefanie Fetzer. Remember, Stefanie Fetzer and Aaron Barnard sought out my ex-wife and brought her and took filings from my original divorce to bring them out to try to shame and embarrass me. This is what godly church women that start Turning Point USA faith hubs in Kootenai County, this is the kind of conduct and behavior that they do.
Yeah, they created a parody page with Keith Bowe and Fetzer and Barnard, and it was disgusting. Releasing private documents are gross.
Whether it's Keith Bowe, whether it is Ryan Skaggs, the list goes on of all of these different individuals. If you call yourself a Christian, if you call yourself conservative, and you behave poorly and you stick out like a sore thumb instead of being the gray man, you're going to get attention. Paul Van Oy got the attention that apparently I didn't give him early on. So now I gave him an audience of thousands of people that keeps growing, in his own words, of what a great big deal he is. Now, I want you all to go out, remember what it is to be people of integrity, men of justice and truth. We need to keep putting pressure on Bob Norris to eradicate human trafficking from this very community. Stay strong and courageous. Donna, take us out.
That investigative report on Stefanie Fetzer will be available as its own broadcast in one piece. That will be available tomorrow morning for you to share. Of course, you can always reshare this live stream even after the fact. It's still all good. But for anybody who's interested specifically in the Fetzer story, we will have that on our YouTube channel and again on our Facebook page as its own individual broadcast. Remember to subscribe to our channels, YouTube and on Facebook, Liberty Without Compromise. On YouTube, it's at the Idaho Sheriff. We thank you so much for joining us tonight on this Liberty Without Compromise broadcast. Visit our website. That's always, if you get mixed up as to all the social channels, just go to our website, libertywithoutcompromise.com, because all of the live stream replays, the reports that we're doing, the investigations, it's all right there at libertywithoutcompromise.com. You can sign up for our email list there too. Stay in touch. I guess that's it. If you like podcasts, you can listen and subscribe wherever you get your shows.
I think it's time for a cigar.
Way past time.
Good night, everybody.